Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Man Drew, and I'm here to do my breakdown for My Hero Academia Season 6, Episode 11. This is going to be a great episode, so let's dive right into it. So, Episode 11 covers pages 2 through 19 in Chapter 289, as well as chapters 290 through 291. And when it comes to this episode, we start off with a cut scene or a cut page that is reintroduced in this episode of a particular character and potentially revealing who this character is. Now, I'm not going to say who this character is, but you can probably already tell who they are based off what we see in this episode. And getting more into the episode proper, we do get some reused scenes that we saw from the last episode of Deku passing out, but from there, we actually get some added scenes to it where we see Deku falling, but luckily enough, Shoto is there to catch him, as well as he has both Endeavor and Bakugo in both of his arms/hands and is making sure that they are okay. And this leads into probably a very interesting aspect of this part of the episode where we get to see that Nejire and Ida have finally arrived to help fight against Shigaraki in this moment. And we do get to see a slight moment of Nejire looking over and seeing Ryuko in a very, very bad state, and she is extremely mad and now has a reason to fight against Shigaraki in this moment. And this is just a small moment of the episode, and the next part is involving Toga as well as Uraraka's battle. But we do also have a moment that I want to bring up, and it's just how well animated this one section of the episode is, and how it makes Shigaraki Tomura extremely menacing. But now going into the fight with Uraraka versus Toga, we get to see it already in process, as it is reused scenes that we saw from the last episode being used in this episode, but then continuing from that moment. Where the entire thing starts off with a slight change from the manga and how it appears to be more dynamic, with Uraraka picking up a glass or whatever container, throwing it at a wall and breaking the glass window, something that isn't necessarily in the manga, or if it is, it's not very clear. So we do get a lot more better action from the anime, as we also get to see more of the fighting between these two. And another slight change in this moment comes from when Toga is remembering her time and is calling out the fact that Uraraka has a crush on Deku. And how in the manga, we get the scene that she's dressed up as Kami and she's hiding behind a rock. But in the anime, she is still dressed and disguised as Kami, but we do get a small moment of Kami being transformed into Toga, which was not what happened in that moment or in that arc, but is pretty much shorthand to indicate that at that moment, that was Toga. So that's a cool aesthetic thing that they added to this scene that I really did enjoy, and a little bit more, we're getting more of the fight between Uraraka and Toga. And as the fight continues, eventually Toga tells Uraraka about what she did with Curious, and this is where we get Uraraka answering Toga with her resolve, as well as Toga having her own resolve and having the answer that she may or may not have wanted when she tries to attack and potentially kill Uraraka in that moment, but is luckily enough saved by Froppy. And after all of this, I can say that this part of the episode and these scenes were done very well. I did enjoy it, and it really conveys the emotion, and it conveys all of the drama in the scenes in the manga extremely well to the anime. Pretty much this entire fight ends with Toga eventually being able to escape thanks to Gigantomachia's rampage still occurring, as we do get to see how she's able to run across the rooftops trying to get back to Gigantomachia, as we have the final part of the fight where you have Uraraka realizing that Toga is crying, and how this moment is going to lead to something down the line that is going to be affecting not only Toga's character, but Uraraka's character as well. And going from the fight between Uraraka and Toga, we are cutting back to the main fight where Gigantomachia finally arrives on the scene, as we get a very lovely imagery of All For One inside of Tomura Shigaraki's body, coming to a realization that his body is beginning to break down, and that because Gigantomachia is there at that moment, that they have a way to escape. Unfortunately, some amazing animation has to come and put that thought to an end via both Nejire and Shoto using a combination attack that is very much animated well, and I love how it looks. There is some confusion about which attacks are which due to the fact that they have a very similar color scheme, but you can indicate which attack or which area is related to Nejire's wave and which one is related to Shoto's fire. But unfortunately, Gigantomachia does come in to save Shigaraki in this moment with a still frame animation, as we're beginning to get into the episode proper that is going to be and have the greatest impact on any anime watcher. And before we even get to that moment, there is some interactions that we get with the League of Villains seeing what's happening with Shigaraki, and they're all being worried. But alright, now it's time to get into the main event, and the main event involves both Endeavor and Dabi. So, Endeavor is beginning to stand up, and this is going to be the indication of the moment to come, because as Endeavor stands up, Dabi reveals that he is actually the long-lost brother of Shoto Todoroki as Toya Todoroki, as at the same time we have the title of this episode dropping. And from there, we do get some added scenes to really emphasize what Dabi is planning this entire time. And how we get to see that thanks to Skeptic and the resources with Redestro and Detnerat, that they were able to use a satellite to hijack the television signals all over Japan and allow for Dabi to relay a video that he recorded revealing a lot of information about who he is and why he's doing all that he is doing. And how we get a little bit more focus on what is happening with Rei in this moment as she is realizing that her son is alive. So we get the video of Toya revealing his connection to Endeavor across the entire world of Japan. And how during this time, Toya taunts Endeavor the entire time while he begins to dance. And while the video is playing of Toya explaining his entire situation to all of Japan, we do get to see the destruction in a little bit more clarity in the anime, as well as the can't you see kid reacting to it as well with shock and horror on his face. And as this is happening, we get the part of the war that everyone was looking forward to, which was Dabi's dance. And all I can really say is this: it was fantastic. The music, the animation, the voice acting, all of it was done to the peak of perfection. And that this may be where the animation between Deku and Shigaraki went for how fluid this animation was. And how Dabi was just dancing his heart out, and it just looked amazing. But even with this, there is actually a change in the dialogue that Dabi is saying that is really important to look out for, because when it comes to what Dabi says in the manga, he pretty much says that he was rooting for Endeavor's happiness the moment that he became the #1 hero. However, in the anime, it's a little bit more personal for Dabi or Toya, and how it's pretty much him saying that he wanted to be the one to make Endeavor happy. And this is very important in a very dramatic change, because this ties more into what we're going to learn, if not in this season, later on down the line when it comes to how Dabi or how Toya ended up this way and why he is so obsessed over his father Endeavor. So this small change really emphasizes what Dabi potentially is as a character and what really motivates him. And as Dabi's dance comes to an end, we actually have a flashback to the moment where Endeavor first saw the fires that consumed his son, as well as get a little bit more history and background on Toya and the Todoroki family before Shoto was born. And things to talk about in this flashback would be added scenes of Endeavor looking at Sekko Peak, which is something that I believe we get later on in the story, but they decided to show part of it now. As well as we get some added scenes where we see that both Toya and Endeavor are training, and how we also get to see both Rei as well as Fuyumi in this flashback involving both Endeavor and Toya, which was not originally in the manga and was added to the anime. And we also get expanded interactions between Toya and Endeavor that was not in the manga, such as Toya climbing onto his father as he was a child, and we get a little bit more interactions of Toya as well as Endeavor doing their training before the reveal that Toya's body begins to burn him. And I really just enjoyed this part of the chapter because it really adds not only to Dabi's character, but also adds to Endeavor's character and gives him a little bit more of a shade of gray for the reasonings why he did the things that he did, and how certain changes to his life may have prevented any of this from actually happening. But all in all, this flashback was done extremely well. But from there, we cut over to the League of Villains after the flashback, with Compress commenting on a point of clarity from the manga when it comes to his dialogue and how he's referring to himself and not someone else when it talks about individuals a part of the League of Villains having these ties or connections to very infamous or famous figures. And from there, we do get a little bit more focus on the people trying not to believe what Toya is even saying, even with the evidence, but then you just have Dabi providing them more evidence for why they may not need to believe or cannot trust Endeavor by the fact that he keeps company like Hawks around, and how Dabi twists in a way where Hawks is perceived as a bad person by stabbing and killing twice as he's running away, as well as revealing that he quote-unquote killed Best Jeanist. And from there, we do get an added scene that I really think is fascinating as we get to see Dabi with his hands up to his ears, as it seems as if he's listening to society losing faith in the heroes and losing faith in Endeavor, which is a very cool and aesthetic addition to add to this scene right before he jumps off of Gigantomachia to attack Endeavor and Shoto. And while Endeavor is frozen in this moment, Dabi once again in this episode has a well animated scene as he's performing one of Endeavor's attacks while he's using his blue flames, and it's done spectacularly. And as the episode ends, this is where we get the major reveal of Best Jeanist being alive, stopping the attack from Dabi, and announcing that he is back as the episode ends. So yeah, if you didn't know, Best Jeanist is back, and this was once again the cut scene from last episode that we are getting in this episode. And when it comes to reveals like this, I'm okay with it not being exactly like the manga, because in this moment, this scene in the manga was very much heavily implied to be Best Jeanist, but was trying to keep it a little bit more of a secret. But unfortunately, because you can see the character up front and that the anime has to, in a way, make sure that the character is accurate to who it's supposed to be, it is pretty much revealing who this character is before the actual major reveal, whether or not we knew who they were beforehand when reading the manga. So it's something that just has to be lost when it comes from adapting a manga into an anime, but overall, I think that this was a very amazing and fantastic episode for My Hero Academia, and maybe the best episode of the entire season. And as we are approaching the end of this breakdown, there are a few other things that I do want to bring up. For instance, there is once again a change in the ending around the same part as the past two changes in the past two endings, where the scenes are being substituted with imagery of a younger Toya using his fire, as well as another image of Dabi using his blue fire. And from there, I just want to talk about a few cut panels or scenes that were not in the anime. One of them involves Uraraka actually touching Toga in the moment and causing her arm to float. That is something that we did not get in the anime. Another involves the Can't You See kid and how the imagery of Twice escaping and crying and trying to run away is no longer in the video proper. And finally, it's just a single page where we have people trying to go to Ray's room and turn off the TV in the fear that what is going on the TV will eventually send her back into a shock because of the fact that her son that she thought was dead and Endeavor, which was involved in that aspect, may cause her to potentially relapse. So that is cut from the anime, but it's fine because of just how the anime and the mangas are structured, and something like this cannot truly fit in the anime and is best used in the manga. So yeah, that's pretty much my breakdown for My Hero Academia episode 11. Once again, I thought this was a wonderful episode. Dabi's dance was animated well. Everything in this episode is more or less animated fantastically. And I just love this episode and how this is probably going to be the most memorable moment of the season, unless we get what I think we're going to be getting in the second core, which I hope we will. But yeah, that's all I have to say. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Leave your thoughts down in the comments down below of what you thought of this episode. Leave a like on the video if you liked it. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more content like this. Do all that cool jazz, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!